What you are about to read should not exist. The files were burned, the witnesses silenced, and the few surviving documents buried deep within the Vatican's catacombs. But the truth has a peculiar way of seeping through the cracks of history, especially when someone decides to break 40 years of silence. Father Marcus Benedetti died under strange circumstances on a cold March morning in 2019, found in his small Roman apartment contorted in an impossible position, as if something had ripped him apart from the inside out. Italian police filed the case as a natural death, but those who knew Marcus knew he carried secrets that could shake the foundations of Christendom itself. 3 days before his death, he contacted me through encrypted channels, whispering words that still wake me in a cold sweat. They finally succeeded. The angel descended. Marcus had been Padre Pio's personal assistant during the saint's final months, and what he witnessed in those final days of 1968 defied everything the Church had taught about the nature of miracles. According to his fragmented accounts, which I pieced together from hidden recordings and coded notes found in his personal library, a secret protocol existed within the Vatican known only as Operation Cherub, an angelic invocation ritual developed over centuries based on lost interpretations of the apocryphal texts of Enoch. The story begins in September 1968, when Padre Pio started showing signs that his stigmata were not merely manifestations of extreme faith, but something far more disturbing. Marcus described in visceral detail how the wounds on the saint's hands and feet began to pulsate with their own light during the early mornings, emitting an almost inaudible sonic frequency that caused the local dogs to howl in despair. Doctors secretly summoned by the Vatican recorded impossible body temperatures, reaching 122 degrees Fahrenheit, without Padre Pio showing any sign of fever or discomfort. Dr. Alessandro Fortini, the cardiologist who oversaw the saint's final examinations, mysteriously disappeared 2 weeks after Padre Pio's death, leaving only an enigmatic letter for his wife. His heart didn't beat like ours. It was as if something was synchronized with an external source, something from very far away. Official medical records were later altered, but Marcus managed to photograph some pages before they were confiscated. The electrocardiograms showed patterns that defied human physiology, waves repeating in sequences that, according to experts consulted decades later, corresponded exactly to the electromagnetic frequencies picked up by radio telescopes when observing certain constellations. Cardinal Alfredo Ottaviani, then prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, secretly arrived in San Giovanni Rotondo on September 15th, accompanied by an entourage that included theologians, physicists, and what Marcus described as men in black who spoke neither Italian nor Latin. They brought strange equipment, devices that seemed a mixture of scientific instruments and ancient liturgical artifacts, some of which Marcus recognized as being similar to descriptions found in the Vatican Apostolic Library manuscripts about experiments conducted during the pontificate of Pius XII. The night of September 20, 1968, remained etched in Marcus's memory as the moment reality fractured before his eyes. He had been instructed to remain constantly vigilant beside Padre Pio, who was visibly weakened, but whose stigmata glowed with increasing intensity as dawn approached. Around 2 a.m., the instruments brought by the Vatican began emitting increasingly sharp signals, and Padre Pio entered a state that Marcus described as terrible ecstasy. His eyes turned completely white, but he remained conscious, speaking in languages that none of the linguists present could identify. It was then that the men in black took control of the situation. They positioned Padre Pio in the center of a circle drawn with substances that Marcus later discovered to be a mixture of Dead Sea salt, ashes of Coptic papyri, and something he suspected to be fragments of meteorites. The chants that followed were not Catholic. They were invocations that seemed to have been extracted directly from the texts of Enoch, specifically those describing the angelic hierarchy and the secret names of the cherubim who guard the throne of God.
What happened at 3:33 a.m. defied everything Marcus thought he knew about the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual. A presence descended upon the makeshift chapel, not a gentle apparition like those described in the lives of saints, but something that radiated such intense power that the electronic equipment present began to fail systematically. Marcus described the sensation as being before a star that decided to take conscious form, something that burned not only the senses but the very soul of anyone who dared to contemplate it directly. The entity that manifested that night did not correspond to the traditional angelic representations of Christian art. It was geometrically impossible, a structure of light and sound that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, with characteristics that Marcus tried to describe using terms that mixed theology and quantum physics. It had wings that were also eyes, that were also flames, that were also voices singing in frequencies that made my bones vibrate, he wrote in his coded notes. And when it spoke, it wasn't with words, but directly into our consciousness, as if it were rewriting our understanding of reality in real time. Cardinal Ottaviani asked the angel specific questions, questions that Marcus partially recorded before his memory began to fail, a side effect that, according to him, affected everyone present in the following days. The questions involved astronomical coordinates, specific dates related to future planetary alignments, and something about access portals that would open when Mars was in conjunction with Jupiter in the house of Aquarius. The angel responded with information that the men in black frantically transcribed in codes that seemed a mix of archaic Latin and mathematical symbols. Padre Pio served as a conduit throughout the ritual, his body functioning as a kind of biological antenna that allowed the angelic manifestation. Marcus noted that as the interaction progressed, the saint's stigmata expanded, creating new geometric patterns on his skin that pulsed in sync with the entity's movements. It was as if he was being used as a communication terminal, Marcus reported. Something was downloading information through him, using his flesh as an interface between dimensions.
The revelations that emerged from that session apparently included specific prophecies about future events, coordinates of locations where other portals could be opened, and detailed instructions on how the Church should position itself regarding scientific discoveries that were still decades in the future. Marcus managed to catch fragments of this information, including references to signs in the heavens that will precede the final revelation and specific dates when the barrier between worlds would become thinner. The ritual ended abruptly when Padre Pio began bleeding not only from the traditional stigmata, but from every pore of his body, as if the intensity of the angelic connection was literally burning his physical form. The entity retreated, leaving only an echo of its presence that Marcus described as a cosmic longing, as if the entire universe missed something that had been temporarily revealed and then hidden again. In the days that followed, Padre Pio entered a state of accelerated decline, but not before sharing some of the information he had received during the invocation with Marcus. He spoke of brothers of the stars who maintained constant communication with certain specially prepared human lineages, about technologies that would be revealed when humanity was spiritually mature enough not to self-destruct, and about the specific role the Catholic Church should play as guardian of these secrets until the appropriate time for their revelation. If you've reached this point in this account, it's because something within you recognizes the truth behind these words. There are forces operating behind the scenes of human history that go far beyond what we've been taught in schools or from pulpits. To continue receiving reports like this, based on real documents and testimonies from people who risked everything to bring this information to light, be sure to follow our upcoming investigations. Marcus told me that, in Padre Pio's last lucid moments, the saint had whispered something that haunted him for the rest of his life. They will return when Saturn crosses the house of Aquarius for the third time in the new millennium. And this time, it will not be just to communicate, but to assess whether we are ready for the transition. Marcus obsessively calculated these astronomical dates, discovering that they coincided with 2025, only a few years in the future from the time he revealed these secrets to me.
Padre Pio officially died on September 23, 1968, 3 days after the invocation. But Marcus insisted that the man who died wasn't exactly the same one who had participated in the ritual. Something had changed in him, Marcus wrote. It was as if part of his essence had been replaced by something older, more knowing. As if the Padre Pio we knew had become a repository of memories that weren't originally his. The official documents concerning Padre Pio's death were sealed in the Vatican secret archives with the highest classification, accessible only to the Pope and a select circle of cardinals. Marcus managed to see some of these documents during his years as an assistant at the Vatican, and what he discovered disturbed him for decades. There were photographs of Padre Pio's final stigmata showing complex geometric patterns, not the simple bloody wounds described in the official biographies, but precise mandalas of scars that correspond exactly to diagrams found in texts of sacred geometry and ancient star maps. Even more disturbing were the secret medical reports documenting inexplicable phenomena in the saint's body after his death. Decomposition followed anomalous patterns. Certain parts of the body were completely preserved, while others disintegrated at an accelerated rate. The technicians responsible for the embalming reported electromagnetic anomalies around the corpse, and at least 3 of them developed recurring visions of luminous figures in the months that followed. Cardinal Ottaviani ordered that all the equipment used during the invocation be transported to an undisclosed location in the Vatican's underground, an area that Marcus described as older than St. Peter's Basilica itself, built on foundations dating back to civilizations predating the Roman Empire. He managed to visit this location only once during an archiving mission in 1975, and what he saw there convinced him that the Catholic Church had inherited knowledge dating back far beyond early Christianity. The secret catacombs contained not only the equipment from Operation Cherub, but entire libraries of texts that were never included in the official biblical canon. Marcus secretly photographed some pages of these manuscripts, revealing detailed diagrams of angelic machines, devices that apparently facilitated communication with entities from other dimensions. The texts were written in multiple languages, including Aramaic, Coptic, Ancient Greek, and symbols that Marcus couldn't identify, but which seemed to correspond to writing systems found in Sumerian and Egyptian artifacts. One of the most disturbing documents that Marcus managed to photograph was a letter dated 1954, signed by Pope Pius XII himself, authorizing experiments in transcendental communication based on research begun during World War II. The letter explicitly mentioned the recruitment of individuals with proven paranormal abilities to serve as biological interfaces in controlled contact operations. Padre Pio was listed as Subject Alpha in this program. The experiments prior to 1968 had apparently been less successful, resulting in only partial manifestations and fragmented communications. Marcus found reports of sessions conducted with other mystics and saints recognized by the Church, but none had achieved the level of contact with Padre Pio. Some of the test subjects suffered permanent nervous breakdowns, while others developed spontaneous stigmata that doctors couldn't explain. Dr. Giuseppe Lazzari, a neuropsychiatrist who secretly participated in the early experiments, left detailed notes on the neurological effects observed in the test subjects. He documented alterations in brainwave activity that persisted for months after the sessions, patterns he described as synchronization with external electromagnetic sources of unknown origin. Some subjects developed the ability to perceive future events with unsettling accuracy, while others began spontaneously speaking in languages that linguists identified as dialects extinct for thousands of years. Marcus showed me blurry photographs from these initial experiments, images he had hidden inside ancient missals in his personal library. The photos showed subjects in states of ecstasy or agony, surrounded by equipment that seemed like a bizarre fusion of modern electronic technology and ancient ritual artifacts.
In several images, undefined luminous forms could be seen floating around the subjects, presences that appeared in the photographs even when they weren't visible to the naked eye during the experiments. What disturbed Marcus most was the discovery that the experiments hadn't ended with Padre Pio's death. Documents dated from the 1970s and 1980s suggested that the Vatican had developed even more sophisticated methods of angelic communication, using technology provided by sources the documents referred to only as external consultants. Marcus suspected these consultants weren't human, based on coded references to long-term partners in consciousness development projects. One of Marcus's last discoveries was a series of aerial photographs of the Vatican taken during specific astronomical events: eclipses, planetary alignments, and comet approaches. The images, taken by American military satellites and later leaked through intelligence channels, showed geometric light formations appearing over St. Peter's Basilica during these occasions. The patterns corresponded exactly to diagrams found in the ancient manuscripts of the secret catacombs. In his final notes, Marcus expressed increasing paranoia about being watched by Vatican agents. He noted strange cars parked near his residence, phones with inexplicable noises, and the constant feeling of being followed during his research. "They know I know," he wrote, "and there are things that shouldn't be known by ordinary people. Maybe they're right. Maybe some secrets are too big for the human mind to process without consequences." 3 weeks before his death, Marcus sent me a package via encrypted mail containing copies of all the documents he had managed to gather over 5 decades of research. The accompanying letter was succinct. "If anything happens to me, publish this. Humanity has a right to know that we are not alone, and that some of the answers we seek are being guarded by those who claim to guide us spiritually." The state of Marcus's body when it was found defied medical explanation. The official coroner reported that there were no signs of external violence, but the bones were fractured in patterns suggesting pressure exerted from the inside out. More strangely, traces of electromagnetic radiation were found at anomalous levels around the corpse, and first responders reported sensations of electric tingling when touching the body. In the week following Marcus's death, 3 other researchers who had occasionally collaborated with his investigations died under similar circumstances in different parts of Europe. Professor Heinrich Zimmermann from the University of Vienna, who had helped Marcus translate some of the ancient texts, was found dead in his office with an expression of absolute terror frozen on his face. Dr. Marie Dubois, a French physicist who had analyzed the electromagnetic anomalies in the Vatican documents, disappeared completely, leaving only burned clothes in her private laboratory. The evidence suggests that there is a protective network around these secrets that operates with lethal efficiency when necessary. But Marcus had prepared me for this possibility, establishing security protocols that would ensure his research survive even if he didn't. "The truth has a way of finding its way," he had told me during our last face-to-face meeting, especially when that truth involves forces that are greater than any human organization. In the months following Marcus's death, I continued to discreetly investigate the clues he had left. I managed to identify other researchers around the world who had independently reached similar conclusions about the nature of the phenomena associated with Padre Pio and other Catholic mystics. Dr. Robert Harrison, a theoretical physicist from the University of Cambridge, had developed theories about biological dimensional interfaces that perfectly matched Marcus's reports on the Vatican experiments. Professor Yuki Tanaka from the University of Tokyo, a specialist in quantum consciousness, had documented cases of individuals who demonstrated non-local communication abilities after intense mystical experiences. His studies included detailed analyses of electroencephalograms that showed patterns virtually identical to those recorded in the subjects of the Vatican experiments. More significantly, Tanaka had identified correlations between these brain patterns and electromagnetic signals picked up by radio telescopes when observing certain regions of space. The network of researchers I gradually managed to contact revealed a global pattern of information suppression related to transcendental contact phenomena. Not only was the Catholic Church involved, military organizations, intelligence agencies, and scientific corporations around the world seemed to collaborate in maintaining secrecy about these discoveries. The few scientists who tried to publish related research found their careers systematically destroyed, their funding canceled, and, in extreme cases, their lives threatened. Dr. Elena Kozlova, a Russian neuroscientist who had studied Orthodox monks with abilities similar to Padre Pio's, contacted me through secure channels after learning of my research.
She had documented cases of telepathic communication during states of religious ecstasy, but was forced to abandon her studies when government agents confiscated all her data and encouraged her to change her field of specialization. "They don't want us to know how much we're truly capable of," she told me during an encrypted conversation, "because if we knew, we wouldn't need them anymore." The implications of Marcus's work extend far beyond the specific issue of angelic invocation at the Vatican. If his findings are correct, humanity possesses latent capacities for interdimensional communication that are being systematically suppressed by power structures that depend on our ignorance to maintain control. Religious organizations, instead of being genuine spiritual guardians, may be functioning as intermediaries, controlling our access to transcendental truths that should be the common heritage of the human species. Marcus's documents suggest that the phenomena associated with Padre Pio were not unique, but represented a type of human capacity that can be developed under certain conditions. The Vatican experiments apparently identified genetic, neurological, and spiritual factors that predispose certain individuals to function as biological antennas for communication with entities from other dimensions. More disturbingly, the documents indicate that these capacities can be artificially stimulated through techniques combining electromagnetic manipulation with specific ritual practices.
Professor James Mitchell, an anthropologist from Oxford University who has studied shamanic traditions around the world, confirmed that isolated indigenous cultures retain knowledge of techniques for communicating with the heavens that are surprisingly similar to the methods described in the Vatican documents. "It's as if there's a universal instruction manual for transcendental contact," he explained to me, "and different cultures around the world developed parts of this manual independently." The prophetic dates mentioned by Padre Pio during his angelic invocation are rapidly approaching. Marcus had calculated that the specific astronomical alignments would occur between 2024 and 2026, periods that would coincide with the global increase in anomalous phenomena that many independent researchers have documented in recent years. Sightings of unidentified objects, experiences of spontaneous telepathic communication, and cases of people developing sudden psychic abilities are being reported with increasing frequency around the world. Dr. Sarah Chen, an astrophysicist working with the SETI program, contacted me after reading some of Marcus's leaked documents. She confirmed that radio telescopes around the world have been picking up structured signals of unknown origin that seem to intensify during the same astronomical alignments mentioned in Padre Pio's prophecies. "There's definitely something happening out there," she admitted, "something that seems to be trying to communicate with us in ways that our official science doesn't yet recognize." Marcus's last note, found handwritten in a Bible hidden on his nightstand, contained a revelation that completely changed my understanding of everything I had discovered. The angel that descended in 1968 wasn't a messenger of God in the sense we always believed. It was a representative of something much older, something that was here before us and that has observed our evolution from the beginning. They are not our creators, but they are not our enemies either. They are overseers, and the time of oversight is coming to an end. This final revelation suggests that humanity is on the verge of a fundamental transition, not just spiritual or scientific, but ontological. The entities that have been communicating through mystics like Padre Pio may be preparing our species for a revelation that will completely change our understanding of our place in the cosmos. The secrets kept by the Vatican and other organizations may be part of a gradual process of preparation for this moment of transition. But there are signs that not all human groups that hold these secrets agree on how the transition should be conducted. Marcus found evidence of competing factions within the Vatican itself, some groups favoring gradual revelation, others insisting that humanity is not yet ready for the complete truth. The mysterious deaths of researchers may be related to these internal disputes over timing and methodology of revelation. Now, as I write these words, I can feel the same sense of being watched that tormented Marcus in his final months. Strange cars appear regularly in my neighborhood. My electronic equipment malfunctions inexplicably, and during the early mornings, when the silence is complete, I can sometimes hear an almost inaudible whisper that seems to come from all directions at once,
a voice that speaks in tongues my conscious mind doesn't recognize, but that something deep within me understands perfectly. The information I have shared here represents only a fraction of what Marcus discovered during decades of clandestine research. There's much more. Names of people still alive who participated in the experiments, specific locations where other invocation rituals were performed, and technical details about the equipment used that could allow for the replication of the phenomena. But revealing this specific information would require a level of protection that I haven't yet been able to establish. What I can say with certainty is that we are living in a unique historical moment. The barriers between what we consider normal and paranormal are dissolving. The organizations that for centuries controlled access to transcendental knowledge are losing their ability to maintain complete secrecy. And something is approaching, whether through astronomical alignments, collective consciousness evolution, or direct intervention by non-human entities, that will force humanity to confront truths about our nature and purpose that will completely redefine our civilization. Padre Pio may have been only the first of many biological interfaces that will be activated in the coming years. Each of us may carry latent capacities for transcendental communication that are waiting only for the right conditions to manifest. The question is not whether this transformation will happen, but whether we will be prepared to deal with the implications when it becomes undeniable. If you feel there's truth in this account, if something within you recognizes the reality behind these revelations, then you may be one of the individuals subtly being prepared to play a part in the coming transition. Pay attention to your dreams, notice the synchronicities appearing in your life, and most importantly, question everything you've been told about the limits of human consciousness. The answers are out there, waiting for those brave enough to seek them. But remember, transcendental knowledge comes with transcendental responsibilities. Once you see through the veil, there's no going back. And now, a question Marcus asked me shortly before he died, and which he said should be passed on to everyone who reads his story. If you discovered you possessed the ability to communicate directly with entities from other dimensions, would you have the courage to use that ability, knowing it would change not only your own life, but potentially the fate of all humankind?